My book is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. The main character, the protagonist, is a guy named Robert Jordan, and in the beginning of the book, he's getting his orders from a general named Goals, and he has to blow up a bridge. And he's given his orders about a week before he blows up the bridge. So that's him, Robert Jordan, the protagonist. In the narrative's voice, it's in the third person, and it only tells Robert Jordan's personal feelings, but it's third person. The central conflict is basically he's sent to go with his band in the mountains, and he has to work with them because they're going to fight the enemies on the bridge. And by the way, this book takes place during the Civil War in Spain after World War One, and they fight. They are part of the rebellion. So Robert Jordan, he's from America, and he fights for the rebellion. Central conflict is he meets this girl named Maria, and they fall in love instantly, and they feel like they complete one another. And that's kind of the central idea, is just him and his relationship with Maria. And also the fact that they know that they are going to die whenever they do this bridge. Or the chances of them dying is very high. And so they are upset about this, and they feel like they have to live this whole time like it's, it could be their these last 7 days, And so it's interesting. And in Ernest Hemingway, he details a lot about this and how they feel and their different emotions. And I'd say Robert Jordan, the protagonist, he learns about himself. He's often asking questions like, how could I love this woman so much? And how could I have always loved her? Yet before I met her, I never knew her, but how have I always loved her? So he asks himself questions like that. And it's very interesting. And it really goes into detail about their emotions and how they can fall in love so quickly. And so now for 5 quotes. So one is, I think that we were born into a time of great difficulty, he thought. This is Robert Jordan thinking. I think any other time was probably easier. One suffers little because all of us have been formed to resist suffering. They who suffer are unsuited to this climate. So he's saying we're born into basically, the early 1940s. That's one of the hardest times in history because there's so much fighting and death. So he's saying any other time has been easier than this, and we have to suffer much. And we've been formed to resist the suffering. This goes along with the lost generation that Ernest Hemingway was part of. And that's how he's able to write Robert Jordan's emotions so well. Another quote. One is, there is a hollow, empty feeling that a man can have when he is waked too early in the morning. That is almost like the feeling of disaster, and he had multiplied this 1,000 times. This is basically saying, whenever you're woken too early in the morning and you fear that you're going to die, and that's how he has lived, because he fears that, he's going to wake up and it's time to blow the bridge, and, they know they're going to die. So it's very scary and stressful. Another one, no animal has more liberty than the cat, but it varies the mess it makes. The cat is the best anarchist. He says this after there's another band, El Sordo's band, and they get trapped on a hill by their enemies, and they end up dying, and they don't clean up the mess they make. And Robert Jordan is saying you should at least have the humanity, at least as much humanity as a cat does, to clean up your mess, because he's just basically saying they're savages. And it really is important because it explains how, even though they're in war and they're fighting each other, they still need to retain their humanity. Another one, he says this to Maria, Robert Jordan does. He says, I'm thee and thou art me, and all of one is the other. This just means that Robert Jordan and Maria, he feels like they're one person. And it's a really deep emotion that they detail a lot in this book. Because, how can you feel like you and one another complete each other and are one when you've just hardly known each other? And in my final quote, it's actually the poem that opens up the book right before chapter 1. And it's from John Donne in his book Paradise Lost. It says, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a cloud be washed away by the sea, Europe is the lessee, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send a note for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee." I've analyzed this poem a lot because I really enjoy it, and I think what it means is basically in war, even though you're both fighting completely different people with different views, mankind is something greater than war. In war, there's two sides, but mankind is always one. And so whenever you kill another person, part of you dies because they're a person, and in every single person you see, you can see something of yourself because, they're human just like you. And so anytime that you kill somebody in war, which is, it's very common in war, a part of you dies. And so don't send for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee, because a part of you has died as well. That's what I think it's saying. And to whom do I recommend this book? I don't really know. I mean, it's a really good book, but not a lot of people I know would want to sit down and read this. Probably my grandma. I think she'd like it. Anyway, that's all. Thank you for listening. Please give me a good grade.